Good morning and welcome again to Summit on this beautiful Monday morning, the 10th of January 2022. Just like I was telling you Happy New Year yesterday, and it's already the 10th day of the month. Well, it's good to be with you again today. My name is Jumoke Michaels. You're welcome to Summit. Banji, good morning.
Now, let me put something to you. I saw a post where somebody said he was tired of saying same to you. That how long would this same to you last? And I wish Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
By the second week or third week or fourth week of the
January,
New Year.
we are still
January.
saying Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Well, it's a fresh edition of the program. My name is Banji Kusari. You're welcome.
All right, so on the program today, like we always do, we'll be looking at some national issues. And this morning, we are actually looking at trying to analyze Buhari's anti-corruption crusade. We all know that that was one of the main themes for the administration when they came into power in the year 2015. But right now, Nigeria is second most corrupt, is said to be the second most corrupt West African country. And that's quite sad, Banji. But okay, we should just introduce our guest, right? So that
Yes.
we'll kick off with the discussion.
To affirm or refute that claim.
All right, okay. Okay, so we have joining us this morning the chairman of the Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership, CACO, the person of Mr. Debo Adeniro. We all know Mr. Debo Adeniro.
Say a veteran.
A veteran.
A veteran when it comes to analyzing issues, particularly on
I think
corruption.
I should say Happy New Year.
Oh, okay.
Then you are going to
Same
say
to
same
you.
thing. It is when we see that we greet ourselves Happy New Year.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that is what is happening. And that is not corruption.
You're welcome, sir.
It's my pleasure. Oh,
Me and you, let's get to Ghana. Right, jollof. This is Ghana. You've come here to seek for greener pastures. Make it your worthwhile.
Any guinea fowl is Guinea. Guinea fowl has nothing to do with Guinea. It's just the name of the fowl. So Ghana jollof, what is it? Is it Nigerian beans?
What?
Have we made before?
No.
Jasper, help me!
This is your radio. This is your radio.
Star FM 101.5 gives you the best of music, news, talk, entertainment, and sports like never before. We give you incisive news every hour, quality music, and sports all day round. Listen to the most entertaining, creative morning show on radio as Star FM gives you top newspaper review, headlines about politics, business, crime, events, and entertainment stories between 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. daily. Our midday show gives you classic, up-tempo, and contemporary urban music to start your day and get you energized. Between 10 to 12 noon daily, we serve it fresh. Now, take your lunch with us on Launch Our Show between 12 noon and 2 p.m. as we pack you with good mix of music loaded with interactive live chart, comedy, game shows, and current events. Our Word of Sport on Star FM comes on daily at the 5 o'clock hour, 6 o'clock hour, and 10 o'clock hour. Daily on Star. Our evening belt showcase a mix of urban music, oldies laced with big jokes, talent hunt shows, and relationships. You don't want to miss is the PM Crew. And round up your day with us on Body and Soul, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Daily with the very best of rhythm and blues, cool music to take you to Wonderland. Join us daily as we give you the very best of music, news, sports, talk, and all-round entertainment. Star FM 101.5, entertaining you all the time. Star FM, your favorite radio station. Star FM on DSTV 869.
We apologize for that break. It's due to some technical issues here in the studio, but we are right back with the program. And like we said at the beginning, today we're analyzing Buhari's anti-corruption crusade. And before I went on that break, I just mentioned that there's a rating that Nigeria is the second most corrupt West African country in year 2020. And we have our guest here in the studio, the chairman of Center for Anti-Corruption and Open Leadership, CACO, Mr. Depo Adeniran. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Sir, we certainly cannot overemphasize the adverse effects, the enormity of the effects of corruption in any country, even in any sector. President Muhammadu Buhari actually realized all this when in 2015 he said we have to collectively kill corruption before it kills us.
That's right.
7 years after, or let me say close to 7 years, we are still here battling, struggling, and we have not been able to kill corruption. It's corruption that so monstrous, big, that it's collectively we have not been able to even decimate it, not talk of killing it. That's 7 years after.
Well, thank you very much. Corruption is a monster. It's monstrous, like you have just identified, and you can't kill it. You can only incapacitate it to a certain extent. There's no country in the world that has actually eliminated corruption. That we should have at the back of our mind. But you can minimize it. You can bring it back to the minimum, the barest minimum that you can get to. But then it is not the government alone that can do it. The people must join hands. If we can actually force the hand of government backward if they don't want to do the needful on the corruption, because we are actually at the receiving end. And the myth around legislation, agencies and the rest of them is not what we should dwell so much on, but our capacity to hold our government accountable will bring corruption down if we the people who are the receiving end of all of the jeopardy that corruption brings about are ready to fight corruption ourselves. But what we have done is to be lethargic of a sort, leaving the fight against corruption to the same elite that are committing the corruption crimes. If you are enjoying the proceeds of corruption, you won't want the flow of illicit funds into your private pocket to cease because you have mortgaged your conscience to the extent that you don't care what happens to those who don't have the opportunity to commit corruption crimes. So that is the reason why it seems to have become intractable, the fight against corruption. But then the fight is going on at some level. It's just that the forces that are helping corruption to fester are also still very strong. Don't forget that since a very long time, corruption crimes have become maybe part and parcel of the ruling elites in this country. And with their private sector collaborators, they don't want corruption to end. Those financial institutions that are benefiting from process of corruption will want their allies in the public sector to continue to commit corruption crimes so that they will be bringing the money to their financial institutions so that they will not die. Most of the financial institutions that have died now, many of the banks, many of the insurance companies, many of the accounting firms, many of the law firms that you no longer hear about them, they die because they no longer have that conduit pipe that feeds them from the process of corruption from the public places. So if the people are vigilant, if the people get adequate education on what constitutes corruption, how to report corruption, and how to curb corruption within every community, it will be difficult for anybody to enjoy process of corruption. And if people commit corruption crimes and they cannot enjoy the benefit of it, definitely it will become unattractive. If committing corruption crimes become unattractive, it means that we will enjoy maybe more abundant life. So basically, no country has killed corruption. Let us forget about killing corruption. We can incapacitate, we can decapitate it, okay? But it will still be there because naturally people are ordinarily created to be greedy. It is the society, at the level of super ego that brings them down to this level of socialization that makes corruption, that should make corruption unattractive. But if our system, if our space, political, socio-economic space allows corruption, then there's nothing anybody can do about it.
Sorry to actually cut you. In your submission, you almost pushed the blame for the ceaseless corruption in our country to the masses, those who have actually been victims. Now, we are aware that there are agencies set up to actually tackle corruption, not for individuals to tackle. Agencies who have all the powers established by law to stop corruption. Yeah. EFCC was set up by the administration of the President Olusegun Obasanjo. In his end of year report recently, claimed that over 2,000 convictions actually were made in 2021. In his fight against corruption. Now over 2,000. Now you begin to ask, if 2,000 convictions were made, how many of them were actually prosecuted? How many of them how many of them were actually brought to a close, such that it will be clear that it has made substantive and good results out of this fight?
You see, 2,000 in the midst of 190 million corrupt elements. It's a drop in the ocean.
Are we all corrupt?
Almost everybody is corrupt one way or the other. Don't just extricate yourself. Okay? I will explain. You said that I was almost pushing the blame to the people. Of course, nobody can enslave you. Nobody can ride on your back if you don't go on all fours. Nobody can enslave you without your permission. You will rather die there. The reason why corruption is festering is because we allowed corrupt elements to enjoy process of corruption. If you make it difficult for them to enjoy that, larger than life kind of life. I mean, they will not want to commit corruption crimes. There are places where you have limited amount of wealth you can acquire and keep to yourself. There are places where prices of goods and services are controlled, that it will be at the level, at the reach of the common man. But then the people themselves are resilient. They didn't allow their government to lead them by the nose. But here, what do? During elections, we don't ask critical questions from the politicians. We don't look at their background. We don't check their pedigree. We just look at their faces. How much can they distribute amongst our people? Even when you decide not to collect it, you don't dissuade other people from collecting it. And these are means of helping corruption to fester. Keeping quiet when injustices are being meted out on the society. It's a crime against humanity. You have to say, do your own. Now, for so long, we have been asking people that, look, do not allow politicians to corrupt you. So if they give you anything that you don't deserve, you have allowed them to corrupt.
No, I like you to address this, the EFCC claims.
Now,
do you think how realistic are these claims, and then in your own estimation, has EFCC lived up to its billing?
Of course, there have been several allegations against EFCC. However, I believe that the present EFCC, or maybe the EFCC, since its creation, have been at the forefront of the fight against corruption. But then, fight against corruption is not their core mandate. They are supposed to fight economic and financial crimes, which is a bit different from fighting corruption. That is the mandate of ICPC. Okay, if ICPC had fought corruption for so long, I think up to 2017 or thereabouts, ICPC didn't have any conviction. This is because of their red tape kind of thing. You have to write petition, they have to examine, they have to do this, they have to do that. But then at the end of the day, you can't get any conviction. But then before ICPC was SFU, Special Fraud Unit of the Nigeria Police, of course, most corruption crimes fall within the ambit of fraud. You have to tell lies, you have to pretend that what is not is, or what is not. And these are how corruption crime crept in. The days of 10%, when you are awarded a contract of so much, you return 10% to those who are awarded. Then it got to a stage when almost 90% of the contract sum goes back to those who are awarded the contract. Then later you have the international dimension to corruption. Then that was what necessitated EFCC. When you have 419, advanced sweep fraud, then you have illegal bunkering on the ICs, you have illegal importation and exportation of nothing, and so many, and so on and so forth. That was what led to, because it became embarrassment for Nigeria in the international community. That was why Obasanjo needed to persuade the international community that he is doing something about the international scam that was going on there. That was how he set up the EFCC. But then, EFCC was actually meant to be a toothless bulldog by the mindset of those who put it together. But then, the first executive chairman of that agency now made it to go beyond. When you do a spark, it becomes a conflagration, and when that conflagration comes, you find it difficult to douse. But dousing it was what the same Obasanjo that set it up did when he sent Nuhu Ribadu, who turned the spark to conflagration to Kuru against his will. and brought in somebody who he believed should be more malleable. Okay, Lamode did his own best.
Farida Waziri.
No, Lamode came in before Farida took over. Then Lamode came in again after Farida. So these are some of the things that happened along the line. Why were they doing that? They wanted to satisfy the yearnings of their political colleagues. Okay, most of those who are committing corruption crimes in public places are politicians, and they are members. Some of them are members of the cabinet, and they are cooperating with the private sector to make this country dry. Okay, they are not committed to prosecuting themselves because they have formed a kind of ring, against Nigerian people, and Nigerian people are not really fighting back with the vigor that it required, and that is why they had their way most of the time. Now, EFCC became very, very virulent, in the fight against corruption. But then, politicians needed to clip their wings because it is domiciled with the Ministry of Justice. And Ministry of Justice is the instrument that the government used to kind of assuage members of the political class. So Ministry of Justice now came up with a kind of gazetted regulation that any case that is up to 50 million must be brought to the Ministry of Justice. That was in the days of Aduke. Now, any crime that has international dimension should be brought to Ministry of Justice. That means that the EFCC doesn't even have power to do much because most of the cases they prosecuted are more than 50 million in volume, and most of them have international dimension. Then ICPC, that's supposed to create a desk in all the MDAs. By the way, MDAs, ministry, department, and agencies, they are supposed to have a desk that will monitor inflow and outflow of funds. They call it ACTU. That is Anti-Corruption and Transparency Unit. So that if you are doing procurement, you have to pass through them, they have to check it to make sure that it is appropriate. Ordinarily, under procurement law, you are supposed to take minimum of 3 quotations out of, excuse me, out of which the best will be chosen. And all the specifications have to be restated so that by the time they make delivery, you will be able to examine. But the truth is that ICPC didn't set up ACTU in most of the MDAs. If you ask them, they say they don't have funds. They don't have technical know-how. Now, the constitutional provision that brought about, the main anti-corruption agency that Constitution provides for is even Code of Conduct Bureau. Wherein every public official had to make a declaration of his assets and liabilities before he goes into government and when he's coming out. But they don't do it. They only feel they do anticipatory, declaration of assets. The Code of Conduct.
What do you mean by anticipatory?
They claim to own what they don't own because they know that when they get to government, they're going to steal so much to acquire those things. So it will just fall in place. Now, CCB is supposed to verify all declared assets. But when you ask CCB, they will say they don't have enough resources to go around the locations, some of them in Nigeria, some of them abroad. They don't have enough resources to do the verification.
That means if you
then they don't also have personnel, they don't have technical know-how, they don't have what it took to verify. So if you make a declaration and nobody is verifying whether truly or falsely,
those things exist.
They can even be existing, they may not be yours, you may just point at it and that's monstrous building belongs to you, that you have 200 billion naira in your pocket. They will not verify because they don't have the expertise. So these are some of the things. These agencies, the bottom line is that the agencies that are supposed to control corruption were not properly funded. Personnel were not properly trained. They do not have adequate equipment. They do not have adequate protection over themselves because what they are doing is very sensitive and dangerous, hazardous. Now, the hazard is what scares a lot of people away from that, from those agencies. Why? Because these people that they are fighting, the people that they are investigating, are very powerful and very crafty. They are also influential. So they believe they can buy anybody. And if you refuse to be bought, they can eliminate.
All right, so if
that is why they need protection.
Yeah, so if the problems are so gigantic, I prefer to call it gigantic from what you have described.
That's right.
And from the report or the rating that EFCC said claims to have achieved 98.5% prosecution success.
Yes.
That's what it calls it in 2021.
Yes.
So should we be happy about
We
this?
shouldn't be happy. That's what I was saying, that look, if they say they have if they have the 2,000 convictions, ask them how many cases are pending. They have more than 20 million cases pending in different zones in this country. So if you get 2,000 convictions,
but that's just Lagos.
It's as good.
No, Lagos is
these are some of the things.
481.
So these are some of the problems. They have inadequate capacity to fight corruption the way it should be fought, to fight financial and economic crimes the way they should be fought. So we should not be happy yet. We should declare war on corruption ourselves as a people. We should train people to understand what it means to live in a corrupt, reduced, society. And we have to extract the viruses, these people that are bringing all this. You have to, what did they use during COVID? You have to eliminate them.
Isolate.
You have to, exactly, you have to put them in isolation center, and this is correctional facilities, or eliminate them all the same. That is what they did in Asian countries. And that is why corruption is minimal. In China, you'll be afraid to commit corruption crimes. Even by the time you are negotiating, you'll be looking over your shoulders, because they know that it's death. In some countries, they don't even allow you to, you don't have time to, you don't have opportunity to waste the time of the court. They just look at it, they find evidence against you, there are witnesses against you, to the Golgotha. So there's nothing like that. But in Nigeria, we catch corrupt elements. They go to court, the court say that you are guilty as charged. Then somebody will now circumvent the course of justice. The court has sent you to prison.
You go to appeal.
Then you go. You don't even go to appeal. Somebody will go to appeal. He said that the judge that adjudicated was not qualified because he had been promoted during that period. They now brought you out of prison. You are welcome with open arms. You commit corruption crimes, you run to overseas countries, you came in disguised as a woman, and when you are coming, your people now receive you with open hands. Meaning that we are welcoming corruption back into our society. You committed corruption crime, 170 can charge corruption crimes in Nigeria. You manipulated your way through the legal web in Nigeria. You are able to run away to UK. You are convicted on part of the charges that were leveled against you in Nigeria. You serve your terms in the UK, you came back to your country, and they welcome you with open hands. This is how we are complicit. The masses themselves who are suffering, go and check communities where these people came from.
Okay, so again, I'm forced to actually cut in here.
Yes.
You have practically pushed the blame, and you are reinforcing it by saying we are allowing it. Now there are instruments of law, instruments recognized by law to stop corruption. These instruments have not succeeded to stop corruption. Now how many protests, the worst that the civil society or the people can do is to go on the street to protest, because they do not have the instruments of power.
You don't even need to
So
go.
how many protests have been successful in Nigeria? In other words, what I'm saying is that if corruption must be fought to its limits in Nigeria, the same elite that you said have brought it about and have allowed it to fester are the same people that would have to push for it. For instance, the National Assembly, there's this word that came into our lexicon a couple of years ago. That's budget padding.
Yeah.
Now, that's something that was strange to us. And it became we had brickbats, the National Assembly and the executive, everybody was throwing brickbats. Till date, we have not been able to prosecute anybody. This year again, the issue of budget padding came to the fore.
Yeah.
Now, is that not fundamental to this issue of festering corruption?
Well, that is actually what I said earlier, that it is the same ruling elite that are perpetrating corruption crimes that are pretending to be fighting it. And we, the masses that are suffering the jeopardy of it, are looking at them and we are agreeing with
helplessly.
them. And
helplessly.
We are not so helpless. We make ourselves helpless. Okay? One, I have said during electioneering, for example, we believe that we should insist that in the amended electoral what do we call it now, bill, anti-corruption should be prioritized by all political parties. How they are going to fight corruption should be prioritized. There should be social inclusion, so that political turf will not be occupied by political elites alone. It will also include people, because when people have raw intelligence, they can apply it if they are allowed. But then we are not insisting on our rights enough. We have CDAs at the grassroots. CDAs have been muzzled by the government itself. If they didn't allow themselves to be so muzzled, they would have been able to control, ask for accountability, especially from the local government. Then if they ask for accountability at the level of their local government, that look, the budget you presented, this is what you say you would do. Have you done them? Now, if they don't do it, they have councillors in their locality. They still allow that person to walk their street free. Now, they are the one who voted for the member of House of Reps. This guy spends so much money on certain people. The same thing with the Senate. They come back, they claim that they are representing them, but the representation is not showing on the ground, and they still allow them to come and recontest within the same community. Why are we so permissive? Why are we so accommodating to people who are making our life, unbearable?
You want me to answer that question?
So, no, you are the one asking.
We've been so impoverished. Nigerians have been so impoverished, they don't have the capacity to stop.
The reason why Nigerians became so impoverished is because we don't ask for accountability. Otherwise, the distribution of work and wealth would have been a statutory mandate for all those who are representing us at the level of government, so that it will become an offense for a government official not to give account of his stewardship, and that he should show it on the ground. And that was what we were doing in Lagos State sometimes ago. Okay, look, we are still doing it up to now. We call it Lagos Open Parliament. We ask people, this government promised this. How far have they implemented it? If you said they have implemented it, we ask you to take us to the site where such a thing has been implemented. If somebody says he's going to build a flyover somewhere and he has not built it, I mean, it will be seen. Then we will ask the question. That's what we ask. That, look, you built this flyover at a cost of how much? 2 billion naira. But then the cost of it, by a quantity surveyor, says that it is 200 million naira. That if you have 200 million naira, it can build it. So why are you inflating this cost? Now, if every community comes up,
what's the outcome of that open parliament? Did you make success of it?
Look, the thing is this. It is better you compile a dossier on your representative, even if that is the only thing you can do. And he knows that you are compiling all of these dossiers. Because the time, it is not time bound. If it is not used today, it might not even be used immediately. But then when it comes to come handy, he may have been removed from the position of influence that can influence the judiciary or those who can protect him. Then he will be brought to justice. Don't forget, Joshua Dariye, Jolin Yame, they committed their crimes maybe 12 years or more earlier, and they were brought to justice just recently. They are serving their jail terms now. They are former governors. Orji Uzor Kalu is just a person waiting for his true conviction, because the court didn't say, the court didn't exonerate him from the charges that were leveled against him. It was some kind of technical, kind of gymnastics. But the present EFCC is already working towards rearraigning the gentleman, and he will still have his jail, his days in jail. Now, if every community provide adequate information about those that came out of their community, this is what he had before he got to government, this is what he has added, then we now calculate how much salaries and emoluments that has come your way during the period when you are governing. That's what we did for the former president Olusegun Obasanjo, when he said he built a library for over 6 billion naira, and he had more than 200 million shares in Transcorp and a few other things. We now calculated his salary. That look, if your salary is even 3 million, his salary wasn't up to 3 million. That for 70 years, you wouldn't have been able, if you don't eat, you don't do anything in that salary, you wouldn't have been able to save 6 billion naira to build a library. Two, that you also use your position as the president to coerce state government and some private sectors to donate towards a fund that belongs to you and your family. And that has been converted. And that is not the first time. So these are some of the information that the communities need to provide. This is somebody who said he didn't have up to 20,000 naira in his account when he was contesting. And all of a sudden, he became multi-billionaire. We have to raise questions. Now, Obasanjo is being protected. I'm sorry, I had to mention his name. It's my example. He wrote it in his book, My Watch, by himself. All the allegations we leveled against him, so he can still come back and do the needful. Now, if the community have put themselves together, that look, this project that cannot be justified by the source of resources with which you build it, if they say it cannot be cited in their community, definitely government will have little say. That look, you have to justify, you have to give account of how you put this money together, how a presidential library will become Obasanjo Library.
All right, sir.
The same thing with some former government. Yes.
The way I didn't expect the discussion to go this way.
Sorry.
No.
Okay.
Because the way you're going about the masses, the people.
Yes.
Would you say that we are failing because of lack of enough of democratic knowledge or information or education? Why are we not doing what we should be doing, especially towards this fight against corruption?
Not quite. It is. You mentioned the elite the other
We are
time.
so laid back.
It is the elite. He said that we have been impoverished to the extent that we do not even want to ask, for what constitutes our rights. Yes, to that extent, it could be correct. But then, those concerned elites, like you and I, should go back to the grassroots and educate them. You know what happens is that there was a time when certain people said that it will get to a time when the poor will have nothing else to eat than the rich. It's already creeping in now. The masses can no longer go to their farms and all that. So why don't we educate the grassroots? And that's what we are doing at the level of CACO now. We are educating the grassroots on how to identify corruption and how to fight corrupt elements within our society. Actually ostracize them. Once we are able to lay our hands on good evidence that he couldn't have been able to afford this property or this amount of money during the period when he was serving, then that's okay, you cannot come back to our own community. That will be good enough. Now, if the elite have decided, just like colonialists, deliberately blinded us to the kind of education that will be useful for our own emancipation. But then we have our raw intelligence to tell us that, look, this is where our sufferings are coming from. Why don't we reject it? By and large, talking about the EFCC again, or the present administration, because if we are looking at corruption from the beginning, it will take a long time to analyze it. But then I believe that the Buhari administration, despite the shortcomings that have been identified and all of the excuses that have been given, I believe that he has done relatively better than Obasanjo, Yar'Adua, Jonathan administrations in the areas of fight against corruption. Because the only thing we can do is comparative analysis. Because if we do the analysis against what standard that is expected, will be a total failure.
All
but
right,
then,
so please just hold it
okay.
there. Let me just say that you can call in to share your views or your thoughts on this issue of fight against corruption by calling 0809 855-5507. The number will be there on the screen, so you can just call. Let's see if you can take maybe 2 or 3 calls before we end the program today. I think we should look at some policies.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the policies that this administration came up with, like the whistleblower
Very good.
policy,
Very good.
like the anti-graft, something about anti-graft, that was in 2016. Whistleblower was, I think, 2017. How has these policies helped?
Well,
if you said they have scored like 70%.
Yeah. First and foremost, we know that prevention is better than cure. And the way you can prevent is to have some legislations that will make it difficult for corruption crimes to be committed. Part of these legislations is what brought about TSA. That is Treasury Single Account.
Hello?
That was...
Hello?
Yeah, let's take this call. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, please, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Dr. Issa.
Okay. All right, please, in 30 seconds, let's have your opinion.
Okay. No, the opinion.
Okay.
No, in Nigeria, they don't have truth. And the people who are control us, they control us, they are not okay. If they are okay, you're not supposed to be like this man, Mr. Debo, is talking, they listening to something that our people are not listening to that more. That's the problem we have in Nigeria.
All right, thank you so much. So he's saying that we don't have leaders who say the truth.
Yeah. Yes, nobody wants to... You see, the truth is even... I mean, the word truth is relative. what you believe is the truth, it may not be true to everyone. But truth has some parameters that have to satisfy before everybody agrees that it's truth.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. Please, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Please, what's your name and where are you calling us from?
I want to contribute to this program.
All right. Okay, please, you have 30 seconds.
Sorry?
You have 30 seconds. Go on.
Okay. Yeah. My take is, this man who's analyzing all of these issues as it relates to corruption. Yeah, he has a depth knowledge of it, but I make to say that the foundation that was put in place for the fight of corruption today vis-a-vis creation of ICPC, EFCC, and what have you, were established by Obasanjo administration. And Obasanjo, he came, it was towards the end of the administration that he institutionalized all of these outfits. And later on, probably it was hijacked, to witch hunt political opponents. But I must give kudos to Obasanjo for his foresightedness to have been able to create this agency. Actually, before now, we were like living in the world. But Obasanjo came and found it necessary to establish all of the agencies that have been used now by the Buhari administration to fight corruption. Like he said, yes, there has been relative improvement. I agree with him, but a lot more needs to be done because the problem with the bills is the bill in it, and that is the problem. The people who are actually perpetrating this corruption are people in government. They know it and we know it. We are the masses.
All right, thank you.
No one cannot fall because for fear of
Thank you.
being isolated or being intimidated or being cajoled. But the gentleman who is analyzing this, I think he has an outfit that can think like that. So let's just keep on talking.
Okay.
Someday we'll across the bridge.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
We are hopeful.
All right, so in other words, are they still relevant, these agencies?
Yes, the agencies are still relevant, and it is left for us to make the best use of them. Just like Obasanjo established ICPC and EFCC, we had before then, like I said, SFU, Code of Conduct Bureau, and the rest of them. If you don't develop political will to implement the laws that set all of these agencies up, you are not going to get anywhere.
Is that not the same government?
That's what I'm saying. Look, that's what I'm saying.
Political will.
Yes,
Will.
the truth is, no, setting up of a law doesn't mean that you have that capacity to implement it. The political will is that you are not going to care on whose ox is God.
But what about issues of autonomy for these
Who is autonomy?
agencies?
They are not autonomous.
Okay.
You know, even the CCB that is supposed to be autonomous is a creation of the Constitution. All others are not creations of the Constitution. So they are domiciled with the Ministry of Justice. Minister of Justice is a politician. He has his colleagues to protect. That is why we are advocating that the Office of Attorney General should be separated from that of Minister of Justice, so that the politicians will not be using our convenience, I mean our whatever, to satisfy the interest of their colleagues. But then, Code of Conduct Bureau has more power. It even has a tribunal. It can try, it can investigate, try, even with serving president or governor. But they are not doing it because of the same thing, political will. But then, if they cannot develop that courage, we should be able to develop public will. Okay? What I call public will is your interest and mine aggregated towards ensuring that there is accountability.
Now,
Yes.
the president came in 2015 and announced his anti-corruption as one of the three tripods.
That's
a
right.
fighting corruption, as economic recovery, and then the security. Now, the three arms of government, the legislature, the judiciary, and the executive, are all supposed to be in this. But people are saying that it is the executive that's actually spearheading it. You recall that some time ago, President came and in his frustration said that judiciary is like a cog in the wheel of fighting corruption, that you would actually need the support of the judiciary.
understand.
Now, cases where an ordinary man that you have always pushed the blame to he does not have the fund to push the case in the law courts. I mean, the man who has probably stolen billions of naira can seek appeal, can go for appeal and even push it to the federal, to the Supreme Court. Some cases take 20 years. How many masses would that actually be there?
I am not also.
So what I'm saying is that what has been the role of the other arms of government, the legislature and the judiciary, in prosecuting corruption?
You see, I'm not just talking about the ultimate powers. Everybody has a role to play within the little corner he finds himself. We have not exhausted, that's what I'm saying, that within our little corner, we have not exhausted what powers we have. And a lot of people are not even ready to use their voice to say what they can say. Even if you say no to corruption, you have done something. Okay? If you ask for accountability within your little corner, then when you talk about three arms of government, they are like what's Bolagi, part of the 5 fingers of leprous hands. Okay, so they work together. Okay, the executive is meant to execute. Legislature make laws, they do oversight functions. Okay, then the judiciary, they interpret the law. Well, it is the law that is on the ground that the judiciary will interpret. Then somebody must push for the interpretation of that law before it is interpreted. It is the executive that will face the society on what they are able to do. And if they wish to do a thing and the legislature does not cooperate.
Are you happy with the performance of the legislature in terms of crushing
corruption? No, I'm not happy. I'm not happy at all because they waste so much time and they wield too much influence. And most of the time when they are supposed to play their oversight functions, they engage some corrupt practices along the line, asking the same MDA that they are oversighting to sponsor some of their movements and activities and the rest. That is not. Then there won't be checks and balances, there won't be complete separation of power. If this thing doesn't happen, then, but ultimately we need national ideology that will limit how much wealth you can put together and how you can enjoy it.
All right, thank you so much, sir. We need to go now. Thank you for sharing your vast experience with us on the program this morning. We appreciate you. And thank you for those who have called and sharing your thoughts with us today. We'll be here again on Wednesday for another edition of Summit. My name is Jumoke Michaels. Bye-bye.
We are praying that you won't allow the open parliament to die. That we will also take you to the federal level.
We're working on it.
Or are you tired already?
No. Not tired. We are still pushing it.
We are still pushing it.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. My name is Banji Busari. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the program. See you again.
Me and you, let's get to Ghana. Hey! Grind jollof. This is Ghana. You've come here to seek for greener pastures. Make it your worthwhile.
Any guinea fowl is a Guinean. Guinea fowl has nothing to do with Guinea. It's just the name of the fowl. So Ghana Jollof, what is it Nigerian beans? What? Have we made before? No. Jasper! Help me!
You need to change it though.
Hey, Edna.
What are you trying to say? You think I'll be stupid enough to sleep with those guys?
Hey, see God.
Wow.
You know what? My mother's name is Mary. Not only that, my sister is Mary. Apart from that, my great-grandmother is Mary as well.
And you will name your own daughter
Mary!
Big cousin. I would need 5,000 naira. I need it for something very urgent. And you won't want to fall your hand now. Your small cousin, you won't want to be stingy now. Because, Meg, 5,000. Baby, where is he?
It's my damn houseboy. He's the housekeeper. Can you imagine this housekeeper eating my meat, playing music in the whole house, disturbing the neighborhood? After, can you imagine? I pay this idiot, I pay him 50,000 in a week.
Jesus!
50,000 naira in a week.
You are paying?
This
Common
fool.
housekeeper, 50,000 naira. And he's doing nonsense.